Hi, Shaka is up again, another of our podcasts. I'm delighted to be joined by Lydia Amoah and Shelley Bishton. Lydia, founder of Blacklight and the author of the Black Pound Report, which we'll certainly get into, Lydia. And Shelley Bishton, head of creative diversity for News UK.
This is 25 for 25, a Show Racism the Red Card podcast. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.
Up front, I will say off the top, Lydia has also been an ambassador to Show Racism the Red Card for some 12 years now. So thank you very much, Lydia, for your support, for everything you've done with us, for everything that you continue to do. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello. Good to be here. It's good to be
here. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. There's so much overlap, certainly between you two ladies, how you work in the communities, the things that you report on and all that you represent. I want to jump straight in though. Black Pound Report, Lydia. What was the motivation behind it? What was the spark to doing this report?
That's a really good question. I mean, I get this question asked me so many times, Shaka. But if I were to tell you about the first instance that made me think, which was a build up to so many things that happened before then. I was in Kingston in Surrey, went to a department store, big department store, I won't say the name, and me and my friends went in there Saturday, getting ready to go out in the evening, and we wanted just to do a general, something that was typical to anybody, to go out and buy products. And she asked it, she had so much choice. We were buying makeup. And when I said to the lady, right, okay, it's my turn, what options have you got for me? What choices are there? What brand do you recommend? She just paused and said, I'm sorry, we only stock colours for normal skin tones.
Normal skin tones?
Yeah, normal skin tones. And I just took a breath, looked at my friend, and she, kind of like took me out of the place because I was just in absolute shock. And at that moment, I thought to myself, there's so many things that happened in that moment. Number one, when the woman said it, she just said it so nonchalant as though she hadn't said anything offensive. And number two, that the fact that she'd said that my skin wasn't a normal skin tone. And number three, there wasn't choice. The list, it just goes on. And it just got me thinking, this is just wrong. I need to be able to walk into a store, be served just like anybody else. And why am I being penalized because of the color of my skin? Why is it deemed as not even worthy to create a product for? And I thought, I've got to do something about this. I didn't know it would be at that time in my 20s, the Black Pound Report, but I knew I made a declaration on that day that I had to do something about it. And since then have been building up to what we now have as the Black Pound Report.
And I mean, there's so much I can take away and get into with that. And one of the things when I hear about the Black Pound Report is that there's been so many studies that shows as well that not just in terms of companies, large corporations serving minorities and communities of color, but also within our own communities, not a lot of the money we earned stays in our communities. Is this something that the report, and forgive me, I haven't read the report myself, is this something the report addresses? And what can be done about that?
Listen, first time round, when I did the first report back in 2017, produced it in 2018, the Black Pound Report, it was self-funded, and I'm really glad that I did that. And I really explored this topic about, how long the pound lasts in the community. And back then, it was said to be, not even a day. However, since then, and I've been going around, I'm not the only one, there's been so many of us that have been going out there, campaigning, educating, talking, highlighting the issue that if we do not invest in our own communities, we can't express or even ask anybody else to do it for us first. It starts at home. As I say, charity begins at home. You have to self-invest. And I know there are challenges out there already. However, we have to help build each other up. So I was consistently going around delivering talks about how long do you think the pound lasts in the community? And it's the same in America. That same conversation was there. Is there and about the same timing, a day or just under a day, or not even an hour. And that was the first piece of education I wanted to deliver. And also at that point, to answer your question, there was this big advert, and it was to do with Gucci and a blackface jumper, and everybody was going crazy about it. And I just thought, you know what, I've had enough. So I just wrote this post on Instagram. I didn't realize that I was going to get this feedback, but I just said, listen, you know, everybody, you have to understand, whenever you get paid, every choice you make is an investment. When you go to buy whatever hair product you go to buy, where you buy your food, even as far as your rents, everything you do is an investment. Think about it. Nobody's asked you to go and buy something from Gucci. That is your choice, because you've given that brand accolade. I'm not destroying the brand Gucci, by the way, but just at that point. And I remember, I'm trying to remember the actor's name. It will come to me. I can see him, the one who does all the films, Spike Lee. Responded to me to say that he supported the message of what I was trying to, I use the point, trying to share and deliver. Think about the choices that you make. And I just thought, how can I do something to make people and teach people that you're of value, you mean something, you are someone, and whatever amount that you've got. And listen, there are a lot of high net worth Black entrepreneurs, by the way, you know, so sometimes it's the messages that are communicated about who we are. And so sometimes we actually communicate a self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh, you know, we're not rich, we're not this, we're not that. And then basically that's not true, because, you know, there's so many I mean, look at you, for example, look how well you've done in your career and in your life. Okay. And look what you're doing now afterwards with this charity, with Shelley Bishton, the Red Card. It's amazing. So there are many of us, and if we come together like we're doing now, we can share the message and we can inspire others to say, you know what, that's possible for me. I can do better, you know, and just by listening to this, hopefully that will give them some form of inspiration. So it's shifted and it's changed. You know, we're now investing. We've got Black Pound Day in the UK, Black Pound Report. We've got businesses. You have to be reminded, you know what, there's a day here. Invest your money in a Black-owned business, or be more conscious about the way that you are investing. And people misunderstand this word investing. They think it means large amounts. It doesn't. A pound is an investment. Whatever you spend is an investment. Yeah. I hope that answers that question.
It certainly does. And Shelley, as head of creative diversity for News UK, a large international organization, and so often when we talk about our communities, spending within our communities, these are grassroots programs. These are ground up programs. But News UK, as I mentioned, international organization, and you supported the Black Pound Project. Why did you feel it was important for your organization to support in this way?
And just jumping back as well on the point, I think the responsibility of consumers, say Black consumers, to spend in Black organizations, I think one of the problem comes is that because it can't be done at scale, the products tend to be very expensive, and its onus is on the brands to, rather than appropriate the products and make their own and then scale them, is to invest in companies who are creating those products and invest in those Black companies who spent tireless years trying to do from ground up, create products and then try to scale them. And that can be so hard without the backing, without the support, without the brands. So I think, I mean, that really just ties into why I fully got on board with Lydia. One, you know, when I met Lydia and started understanding her journey and everything she's gone through to get to the Black Pound Report, investing in that first one, basically completely on her own, I was just astounded. But also seeing the magnitude of what could possibly come from doing such a big report as to investigating what is the economic potential of Black and brown people in the UK. Because at News UK, I came in this role, sorry if I just go back again, I came into this role, my role, look at representation within our content output. So working with our editorial teams to say, okay, if we're going to do diversity properly, we're going to have to look at the content that we're putting out, and that has to represent people. And then the one thing I started to become astounded with, there was just no information about, you know, everyone kept saying, diversity makes money. If we do diversity, it makes money. You know, people just keep saying these lines, but it's really difficult to keep pushing that line in a capitalist organization without actually saying, here is the value of doing this. And I found that was really difficult. So when Lydia presented the Black Power report, it's like, this is exactly what we need as Black people in this country. We need to say, this is what our economic potential is, because then people take notice, people are interested, people want to know because the data's there. So it felt like an absolute no-brainer for us to work with Lydia to explore it. And we've utilized loads of that data, that information through our own, across the whole of our business. We've got the Times, we've got the Sun, we've got Talk TV, you know, we've got a huge organization. So we're utilizing that in our brand conversations on the commercial side, but also how do we integrate that in other areas of our business?
And how can corporations and financial organizations support the growth of those black businesses? The commercialization, I think is a phrase you used, which you said you didn't like, the commercialization of diversity. But we have such outstanding examples now. Rihanna, as an example, and Fenty Cosmetics, to the point that Lydia was making, and by catering to, by shaping a brand that embraces diversity, that embraces all skin tones and the humanness of everybody, she has become one of the youngest self-made billionaires, certainly in the US, and I'll say globally, and serves as an example as to how Black and minority-facing businesses can and should stand on a similar platform and a similar level to so many of other multinationals. So, but Rihanna was able to leverage that through her celebrity. How can corporations and financial institutions support that next young woman who's trying to launch her own makeup brand?
Shall I jump in?
Yes, please. I'll put that to you, Shelley.
Well, I suppose, going back to, I mean, I do and I don't like the word commercialization of diversity. I don't like when diversity is appropriated and the community is used and our culture is used to make money. But then when you look at those organizations properly, they're not actually truly investing in the community. And more importantly, that company is not changing in terms of the makeup of its business, its diversity in the center, have they got people sitting in those top seats? So I don't like where that commercialization is used to a disadvantage. But then I do actually believe in the commercialization of diversity. I am a diversity person, but I have a marketing background. I understand everything needs to make money in this country. So let's not forget that. And let's work within the remits of what the power within this country needs. And that is to show that actually, if we do things in this way, this is how we make money. And there is so much money to be made in our communities. There is so much entrepreneurship. There are so many companies that are thriving. I think the thing and the reason why News UK invested in Lydia in Backlight, the Black Power report, it was essentially, it's a community, you're a community organization that's been born out of the struggle. And so we're investing back in that, because you can't get richer information or a richer understanding than that. I think, and that's what we've tried to do a lot. We've tried to, or what I've tried to do in this role particularly, is try to go back into the communities where it actually is stemming from and try and invest there. I think the problem comes where I think Rihanna's amazing. I think Fenty is incredible. But like you said, she's a celebrity and it's just spread by one person. And that's what tends to happen as well. Organizations will go to well-known people or the same people, and you know, there's other people that are doing incredible things. And so I think that's got to be avoided. I think that's got to be avoided. I mean, I even think in the Black community in the UK right now, we might start having a crisis where there'll be this growth of an upper class Black community, but we can't forget there is so many differences socioeconomically within the Black community within this, particularly the UK, and we can't just have this growing elite. That needs to keep looping back and feeding back into, you know, working class and moving through the scale. I don't know. I mean, I'm going I'm going off point a bit, but
no, not at all, not at all. I think you're showing exactly how nuanced and how complex a lot of these issues are. And Lydia, I'm going to ask you to put your backlight hat on. An organization as you describe as a cultural change agency. If you were advising a bank about investing in small and micro minority businesses, what is your selling point? How do you convince this large financial organization to invest in small community, say the community at the time, companies, and get them to see the bigger picture, get them to see a lot further down the road that sometimes the entrepreneur themselves may not be able to appreciate?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because that goes back to, I can go back to my journey of experience of even when I began in business, and that's why, with this Black Pound report, with all the research and studies that we've done together with Shelley and News UK have come into play, because I remember in the early days when beginning as a business, number one, you don't have all the information. You just got this amazing skill and ability. You've got these gifts and talents, but that needs shaping. In all honesty, it does. It needs shaping. You need somebody in front of you experienced to say, Lydia, do you know what you're doing there? That's a business idea. Do you know what that actually is worth this much? Hold your value, hold your ground, but actually present your business in such a way, not to say to lose a spice of your business and feel as though you have to change to become like a business that is palatable. I don't mean that. I'm talking about the skills and ability. So when it comes to banks now, fast forward to where I am now, my business backlight has been in conversations with one of the largest establishments in the world, 200 years old and plus, which is Coutts Bank. They speak to us, so they've expressed interest in what we've got. Data, as Shelley says, data is power, and the multi-ethnic, Black, Asian, and multi-ethnic data, I can't begin to tell you, is worth billions. Now, as history, so I can't give you a straight answer, but I have to give these points into it so that the question is fully understood and the answer is fully understood. So history has had it that in the world of research, the majority of the people that create the research, design the questions, are the thoughts behind it, do not look like any of us on this screen. Okay, so therefore there will be blind spots. The same way, if I was to research, been given a task to research 3,000 people from Caucasian backgrounds, I would have a blind spot. Naturally, there's knowledge and experience I would have, of course, which are transferable, but there are elements that would be missing. That's why diversity is key, because we can all come together. So in saying that, now banks like Coutts, HSBC, NatWest, and Barclays, all the known banks, Metro, I'm able to have conversations with them now and speak to them at a point. And the way I can speak to them at a point is because I've got something really strong and solid to offer them, which is not only my experience or training and skills that I can present to them, but it's the data, because that's what they need. That's what they trust. A lot of businesses, I don't know, Shelley, if you would agree here, but make foundational decisions when they have data, because they, now we're going into more of a risk-averse economy where everybody is thinking, oh my gosh, everything's a risk. Have we got money? Believe me, there's money there. There is always money there. When we're walking into a recession, places like companies like Disney, CNN, they were birthed in a recession. So you have to really get stronger in a recession and not talk pity. But going back to banks, before it felt like you really had to prove yourself, overprove. Please, I'm worth something. This is, and it was more so you were coming off a help the community type of vibe. Does that make sense? Whereas now, and that is still required, because every community, in every culture and every background needs some form of support. It's always been like that in society. However, it's presented to the banks to say, actually, we're a business. We can actually help you. You're a business. It's about making money. You want people to save. Now banks are even opening accounts of people that are homeless, you know, so they can actually have a chance to have an investment savings and so on and so forth. Now, if you don't understand a community or group of people, you will never, ever be able to reach them, understand them, and come across as authentic and real, you know? So now businesses know that actually they have the power, but it's not how it used to be. I hope I'm being clear. The power is still in their hands. However, audiences are vital. So there's still an element, Shaka, of proving and saying, look, we have value, we have worth, but it's how you articulate it. And that's why now I've got all of this experience working with Shelley. Shelley's really supported my agency so much. You know, we were talking about how you play it forward. Shelley, through Shelley and News UK, I'm able to play it forward for my community. You know, of course I charge for my research because I've got to survive as a business, but I will give out versions of the report to people and so on and so forth. I'll do what I can because that's important to pay it forward, you see. But
can I just add on that?
Yes,
you know, about the there was two things there, and the fact of our relationship, and I think there's something in that, because I think coming in this role and realizing there is a real hole opening the door to community organizations. And I think that's twofold. I think one of the reasons is a lot of community organizations don't know how to navigate a business like this. And it's unfortunate. There's a certain process, there's a certain way. We have worked so closely, haven't we? And it's like there's stakeholders in here. You know, there's different pitches. I mean, look how many pitches. It's like we've got to go through this process. I think what happens is people come to the door. They might meet one person. It's not quite right the way they've pitched it. There's no feedback. It's almost like they're full of fear. I don't quite know if this is going to, you know, this feels something new. I don't know if it's going to work. I'm not used to this. And then the door shuts. And I think there's something that I think we have to try and help more organizations in that process. One, there needs to be more people like me who can, you know, open the door and let people through. And I just don't think that's in a lot of organizations. And two, it's like, how do we help organizations get better prepared, supported, you know, through that process? Because there is a certain, it's like a model, isn't there, of getting in.
Shelley, you've just come out of a business idea. We're going to talk later. No, but as soon as you say that, it just gets me thinking, because you've said a really good point there, Shelley. And the question, just that one question you asked, has opened so many other questions, Shaka, because as Shelley said, it's true, because I don't take for granted the experience and actually what I needed to go through the process, as Shelley says, because I'm a smaller business, although our work is worldwide, but I'm a smaller business. News UK is a huge establishment. So there are processes, like you said, the stakeholders. You don't just get a yes just like that. It takes time. But to a smaller organization, you want to answer literally because you need the money, right? And you want to get going. You want an answer, but like yesterday. But it doesn't work.
People harass me. People will email me, and people get really angry with me. You know, I'll have an organization contact me, and they'll assume that I can turn something around like that. I'm like, do you know the powers in this business? Do you know, you know, do you know how many arguments I have to have on this side? They think they're like, what are you doing? Have you done anything? And I'm just like, geez, you know, you need to give a sister some air, because it's taken, but because people don't understand. They don't. So I appreciate, but you, I mean, Lydia, you were so patient with it, and we worked really well on it, but it does take a lot.
It does take a lot.
I think as well, as entrepreneurs, particularly entrepreneurs of color, we also have a fear of rejection. You know, that first no. We use one no to kind of validate why our business won't work, and won't go looking after that second. So there's also needs to be better education about these processes for some of our small and medium-sized businesses. Lydia, you said something that I took note of. Audiences are key, and Shelley, of course, you work in media. How does that translate to what you do day to day? How does that synergy between the stories of our communities in an organization such as yours, where, as you say, that it's so large, there are so many different stakeholders. that you have to validate each step of that process. How can we, tell these stories? How can we get these stories out to a wider audience? In leveraging some of these corporations that getting anything on page 1 or page 2 is so demanding.
We needed to. I mean, we just had some really good insight that's come back about the Black Pound report and the impact, because we actually did an exclusive in the Times.
Okay.
Worked with the Times newspaper to report the findings as an exclusive, and we just got some research back to say how well received that content was. I know I'm going to share it with you.
Oh my gosh, you're really happy.
And I think this is the point. It's like proof points. Like there's this fear of doing something different, of one, alienating an audience, which is probably the number one fear, like alienating people with all this new content. I mean, the fundamental thing that we need to change is the fact that the newsroom is currently 94% white. So the viewpoints of those people are really limited. But actually, if you look at the dynamics of the UK, what was it, 40, isn't it now 60% of London is an ethnic, is it identified as being a minority?
It's just growing.
If you aren't covering 60% of the people, you're soon going to start noticing the difference in terms of your reach. I think it's shifting, and there's definitely an emphasis on trying to do more things like the Black Pound report, investing in new talent. I just think it takes so long because newsrooms can't just change overnight. I mean, you're not just going to suddenly just change the whole floor, so it's a process. It's a really long process, but doing things like the Black Pound report, reporting back the findings, the stats is kind of all going to help.
In terms of that diversity or lack of, in terms of newsrooms and stories or data and technology, as Lydia was speaking about, I found one of the best examples is in AI and face recognition technology, where you people write code, and I'm not accusing anybody of being racist in writing that code, but somehow this technology seems to misidentify black and brown faces with such regularity, and it speaks to why we need that diversity in data, that diversity in or even building the data and the code. But I read a report. I read a report this week. Melody Hobson, who Forbes describes as the most connected woman on Wall Street. And for those who don't know, Melody Forbes is chairwoman of Starbucks, co-founder of Ariel Investments, an investment firm here in the US with $15 billion under investment. When she said that there has been a huge focus around access to capital for Black and minority businesses. When she feels, as she put it, what they need is an access to customers, that only 2% of corporate spending goes towards Black and minority owned businesses. Is this something that you've addressed in your report, in your Black Pound report, Lydia?
Okay, that's a good question. So with regards to, there is another piece of research which was just been released today, which is something separate, which is about Black-owned businesses, and that is actually highlighting that actual point that she's mentioned about customers, and it's true, but it's the same thing in my eye, that we need investment, and you also need customers. No customers, no investment, no investment, no customers. You need both. And obviously, I am in a position to talk about investment because I was able to achieve it with one of the biggest news agencies in the world, like worldwide, News UK, right? We're talking about Rupert Murdoch's company. Shelley's not downplayed, but the rooms that Shelley walks into, the conversations with the people that she has to communicate with are a dream room that entrepreneurs would want to be in there with, just to learn. Does that make sense? So going back to that point, and I say this because I'm talking about access, and how people pay it forward, because I can pay it forward. Shelley pays it forward with the position that she holds, because she's negotiating on Backlight's behalf as well as the business's behalf, because she's got to do it like to her. She's got to do it from their perspective and my perspective, you know. And that's how it is. And that's how it is for all business. Of course, as a Black-owned business, a long time ago, Shaka, I needed investment. There were so many times, but I just didn't give up. There were times when you just didn't know when you were paying a bill or anything like this. And so when I see myself where I am now, I just think, wow, you know, how incredible to be where we are now. And so it's always going to be in my heart to want to make sure that I can help others to progress, like the younger generation up and coming, or anybody who's willing to actually use the information, you know, because they've got to do the work as well. It's not easy to be sitting in this seat. I think we all know this. So this conversation
I think your report did highlight that Black people are ignored as customers.
Oh yeah. Gosh, the psychological passing.
And just generally, like, we're not marketed to. Like, we're not marketed efficiently, effectively, because no one knows how to talk to us properly. You know, you've got to be a really smart marketing team to think about your marketing strategy. You're a room full of white people, and you've got this new brand product. This is the templated way I'm going to advertise this to this group of people that I have. That's not specifically looking at our needs, what we want. And then what we've established in the Black Parent Report is actually the specific ways we can be spoken to. There's no targeting. So I do think from a customer perspective, there is probably there's money there, isn't there? There's money there in terms of how are you marketing to me? The only place I feel marketed to efficiently is through Instagram.
Oh yeah. Oh wow.
Influencers. That's through influence. It's never through brands. And there's very few brands that we could probably think of that feels like it's targeting us. Think of beauty brands. I don't think any beauty brands other than Fenty.
So have you all noticed any kind of a shift?
No, none of us can even recite it. No, we're having difficulty sitting here. But if you ask us to recite any other brand, we can just go and list it off, can't we? We can list all the brands in the world. The fact that we're scratching our brain cells just to even topic this subject, it shows how much work there is still to be done. And this is, again, down to access, opportunity, and privilege. So,
ladies, it's just in closing, and I say rather arrogantly, we at Show Racing the Red Card celebrated our 25th anniversary, albeit a couple of years ago. I think one of the most difficult things in the work that we do is in recognizing and most of the point in celebrating progress. So while we boast of 25 years of doing what we've done, we reckon we still have to pay very close attention to how far we still have to go. And so sometimes celebrating those milestones are difficult, or even recognizing that progress. I'm going to ask you all that. What progress have you seen over your own respective times at doing as you do? That gives you encouragement. That gives you reason to believe in how much further there is to go. I'm going to start with you, Shelley.
I think, it's so easy to say that there's still so much more to do, but actually I think one of the problems is we move at such a fast pace now. We expect things to move really, really quickly. But if you think about the difference, to when our parents, my mum came over from Jamaica. I mean, we've moved huge amounts. And the fact that we did something like the Black Parent Report in News UK, a couple of years ago, again, I think it really, really signifies the shift and the change. I think to the points we were talking about earlier, equity is a big piece of it. Now, representation, I think we can see representation more. We see it more on our screens, we can see that these things are moving, but I think equity, investment, seeing more Black women at the helm, I think these are things now that we need to start kind of growing to actually make true progress.
And Lydia, I'm going to put the same thing to you. What gives you reason to pause and celebrate and be hopeful for the journey ahead?
Okay, so just celebrate. Number one, first of all, I'm really proud to be an ambassador for Show Racing Red Card, and all the events I've supported with you, and just seeing the access that you have into Parliament, with all the footballers, with all the people in sport, in education, what you're doing to teach. I just love that. That wasn't there for me as a kid. I don't think it was the same for Shelley. And the fact that you're going in and you're teaching young children, which is where it's at, because they are our tomorrow, you know. So I'm really proud of that and all the work that you do there, number one, and also, of course, to be an ambassador. Secondly, what I'm happy to celebrate is obviously the achievement of working with Shelley at News UK, not only to work with News UK, but also the friendship that I've developed with Shelley has been incredible, because I can just go, it's changed my life, really has, and that of my family, big time. And it can, you know, long after I'm gone, hopefully it'll be spoken about, you know, about this change that happens, you know, that this crazy auntie got an opportunity to work with, you know, which they often call me, with News UK, to actually reach those stakeholders and getting them to invest. And, you know, as Shelley just spoke about earlier, that she's just got some insights. So I'm really proud of that, and I'm happy about, and as you can see, Shaka, as Shelley said, and we've discussed, things do move so quickly. Sometimes we don't have enough of an opportunity. I really love that question, to celebrate. And sometimes people are fearful to celebrate because it means that we're done. No, we know that we're not done. There's still more to come. But if you're not grateful for how far you've come, how can you move forward with reverence, you know? So with regards to where we need to go now, I can only echo what Shelley said. It's true. All people, Black people, all people of all backgrounds need support and access, mentorship, time, encouragement. The list is endless. So it's almost like we have to keep redoing it and refocus, but still identify where we've done well, because it doesn't mean we have to stop there. We still have to keep sewing in there, but it's almost like a different level of energy and focus to where we need to go. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. So
it does. Lydia, flattery will get you everywhere. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Shaka was really smiling when you say that. Shaka was right? Like blushing.
I'm blushing here.
I was like, damn, I really said that. I was really regretful I didn't start with that. I was like, she said,
don't try to steal a thunder now, Shelley.
I know. What Lydia said.
Lydia, Shelley, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
This has been hugely insightful, impactful. It's been a lot of fun. Just recognizing the work that both of you ladies are doing in how you shape what our community can look like, and how our community can better serve each other, how others can serve our community, and our community can serve wider Britain. I think these impacts will be felt for a very long time, and as we all acknowledge, we still have a very long way to go on this journey to true equality. But I am more encouraged by the way that both of you continue to path and pave a way for others to follow. Thank you very much for your time. I've enjoyed every moment.
Thank you, Shaka. Thank you so much.